I think some experiences that I had as a very young musician are very relevant to what I ultimately got involved with. But probably to the best I can recollect, my first experiences with music of Bloch was with Suite Modal, which at the time which would have been um, in the late 50s, early 60s, uh, when that was still a new piece. And I had a chance to hear that probably on more than one occasion, particularly when I was at Oberlin in the conservatory, as a lot of the flute students, it was part of their repertoire and their recitals. And then, kind of concurrently with that, there was a Congress of Strings held each summer at Michigan State University. And I worked there a couple summers when I was in college, uh, going to school, doing a course, and just doing some general work in the department as an assistant. And uh, I know I heard a performance there of the first Concerto Grosso, and I just was very intrigued with that music, and just I was still in the process of absorbing a lot of different kinds of music. Nonetheless, uh, at at a later time, when I was in graduate school at the University of Iowa, I also played in Cedar Rapids Symphony, and played first oboe in that, and had the very special experience of playing the Shlomo with Janos Starker, and that was quite an experience. Not only hearing the piece, but interacting with him as a performer, and that's something that I think is will always be with me. So that's really uh, how I was introduced to Bloch. Then at a later time, um, when I was at Linfield College here in McMinnville here in Oregon, as director of the department, uh, I began to have some other experiences. Just prior to that, I was teaching at Evergreen State College, and on the faculty was George Dimitrov was on the faculty, who is one of Lucien's children, and we became very good friends. He was also an oboist, and I actually taught his son oboe. And so as we got acquainted, he kind of filled me in on quite a bit of the Bloch family, and so that was my first real introduction to the greater Bloch family and to Ernest Bloch himself. And he had lots of experiences and so on with his grandfather, and uh, really shared that with me. And when I got down to Linfield, um, I uh, had, let's see, I'll make sure I keep the chronology here straight. Um, I realized that Bloch's personal music library had been donated to the Linfield Library. So I went there one day and uh, looked through what was there, and realized I had heard about the Francis Densmore books on Native American music, but had not really uh, perused them. But while I was there, I opened that up, and in the meantime, I had become acquainted with Bloch's America, and the use of some Native American music in that. And I found one particular example, and I'll share that with you here in a moment, that I used in a woodwind quintet. And so from this point on, I just became more and more involved, and even when I was up at Evergreen, I met Lucienne and her husband Stefan, um, because they came there to do some mural workshops, and um, I don't know. I think I may have talked this over with George, but I said Bloch's centennial is coming up in 1980. What might we work out? And as it turned out, I was able to invite Lucien and Stefan to come and be in residence while we also presented a Bloch Century music festival. And maybe I should get into some photos here. This is Stefan and Lucien and their granddaughter, George's daughter. Uh, I'm not remember her name, myself and my two young sons at the time. And um, see, and I think I've got. Okay, is this showing up all right?
Yes.
Okay. This was at the we had a symposium. I'll review the kind of the plan that we had there. But this was a symposium that we had on Bloch's music, and with Milo Vold, Ernie Bloch II, myself, Helen Johnston, and Lucienne. Ernie came because his father Ivan was not feeling well and uh, thought he was going to be able to come at the last minute. He wasn't, so Ernie came, and it was really very special because Ernie had a lot of experience with his grandfather because he acted as Bloch's chauffeur in his later days when he had to go to Portland, and so he spent quite a bit of time with his grandfather, and so we uh, really had a nice turnout for this on the campus. And I think we even might have gotten some coverage even in the Oregonian with this, because we were really the first organization in Oregon that had done anything to commemorate Bloch's anniversary. University of Oregon did something later on in the year, but we were the first. So I like to brag about that just a little bit, if you'll forgive me. Um, and and this was the poster that we had. And let me just take a moment to share. We we had several events. We had um, two concerts and the seminar, and then concurrent with this, Lucienne and Stefan um, conducted workshops on mural painting, and so the art department was involved, and a lot of those folks participated in all the events. Uh, in terms of what we did for that, for the concerts, for the chamber music concert, we did the Suite Modal and excerpts from Visions and Prophecies. And then for the orchestra concert, we did the In Memoriam, the Proclamation for, I think, was that a trumpet and orchestra, I believe, if I've got things right. Suite Hebraic, or Prayer, the Prayer, in a version with cello, and the two last poems with flute, and and then also the Schubert Unfinished Symphony. And unbeknownst to me, that turned out via Lucienne. She came up to me after the concert. She said, "How did you know that that was one of Papa's favorite pieces?" And so that was just a happy coincidence. It was something I picked because it was something that the orchestra I had available to me there at Linfield was something that we could handle. And so that all worked out very well. And 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 as a result, I made new connections with Milo Vold, who had been a past chairman quite a few years prior to my arrival at Linfield, and also Helen Johnston, who I kept in touch with for many years after that, and just we really just had a real nice gab fest during this time to learn about each other. Um, Also concurrent with almost concurrent with this, or just a couple of years later, I started making contacts down at the Oregon Coast Council for the Arts, mainly because in 1980 I attended a composers symposium in Connecticut via the Charles Ives Center, and I thought, gee, wouldn't it be neat if we could have something like this on the West Coast? Because at that time, all of that kind of activity was all entirely back east. And I thought that it would be nice to have something that would focus on West Coast composers and give them some opportunities like that. And so I made a contact with Sharon Morgan, who was director of the Oregon Coast Council, and we started a dialogue, and it went on for several years because she was very supportive of the idea, but said, you know, we really don't have the resources or the facility to do something about it. But about 1987, 88, I received a call from Sharon. She says, "Hey, the time has come," because they had got a grant had been given, and it resulted in the Newport Performing Arts Center. And she said, when that's up, she said, we will have the facilities to do it. And can we talk about the Composer Symposium? And as a result of talking with that and with a committee that Sharon put together, we decided that really we needed to do not only the symposium, but also to have a Ernest Bloch music festival where we could have performances of Bloch's music and have that complemented with a composers symposium. And and as that process went along, she was put me in touch with Tony Armori, who at that time was doing had a kind of a part-time situation with the Aquinnah Chamber Orchestra, and we first met actually in the Denver airport when we were both traveling, and agreed that we'd work together to bring this about. And indeed, that happened in the summer of 1990 when we had really a 3-week festival, 2 weeks of the symposium, and then a third week that was the Ernest Bloch Music Festival. And as I told Jesse, I unfortunately don't have a copy readily at hand of that first thing, so I'm not really remembering quite what all works we did of Bloch's, and you'll have to forgive me for that. Uh, but the Composer Symposium started with, as a guest, I had a master composer and usually about 8 to 10 composers that submitted scores. And all they had to do was show up because we took care of their housing and quite a few of their meals and paid the master composer fee. And we could get together and play either a new piece or an existing piece for the ensemble. And the ensemble that I had the first year was a woodwind quintet, and the master composer was Barney Childs. And then in subsequent years, and I'll just do this right now while it's fresh, I had other Western related composers, and that was one thing that I firmly held to during the time that I was director of the symposium. And in subsequent years, I had George Crumb, Donald Erb, George Heusenstam, Beverly Grigsby, William Kraft, Paul Chihara, and Chinnery Ung all came as master composers. And each year we had a different type of ensemble. I cycled through woodwind quintet, brass quintet, and then in subsequent one year saxophone quartet, which George Heusenstam did. And then other years sort of a Perot ensemble, usually piano, violin, and cello. I think in one year with percussion, and and then I did another year where it was guitar. I'm trying to remember. I think I stepped in as oboist and a singer, and so each year was a variety of instruments, and so that we could give different opportunities to the fairly wide group of composers. Um, so as the Bloch Festival and the symposium moved along, I was able to be with it through this summer of 1997. After that, the um, the Composer Symposium was taken over by Henry Malacone, who's from California and still very active as a composer and conductor. And he did it until the summer of 2006. Uh, and then Tony Armari did, excuse me, let me take a drink here. Um, Tony um, stayed active as the director of the festival through approximately the first 3 years, and then after that, um, it became a mixture. Uh, the most prominent among the people that continued on was Neville Dove, a conductor and pianist, and did a really wonderful job and was very empathetic and supportive of the whole idea of the festival and the symposium, and had some very interesting programs. I also want to mention some other people that were just important players in all of this. Um, about 1993 or 4, Stan and Devine Green, who were arts patrons in Newport, stepped forth and fully supported the Composer Symposium through about 1997 with a very nice grant of $6,000, which covered our master composer and paid the musicians and just made it possible for the composers to just attend and not have to pay a special fee to be a part of the symposium. And that was very special. And so I really want to mention them especially. Sharon Morgan, throughout these years, uh, was always very supportive, made any resources she could available to us, and so that we didn't have to deal with any facilities fees or anything like that. Later on, as things became more expensive, then this became more of a factor in our festival planning as well as the symposium, and and trying to work out the sharing of the facilities because it's can be a very busy the Performing Arts Center can be a very busy place in the summer. Um, I did find two different programs that I did have available. One from 1999, just to give you an idea of the types of concerts that we were able to put on with the festival. Um, and so in this is in yeah, 99, summer of 99, there were a number of concerts, and by that time we were also able to perform in some other venues, which was very nice to broaden the base of operations, as it were, and also to have some guest people in. Uh, and for this particular summer, Alex was with us. I don't know if he remembers that or not, but came and gave some lectures on Bloch at several different locations. But in terms of the repertoire, it included Bloch's Suite Number 2 for solo cello, Sonata for piano, the let's see, the In Memoriam, and let's see, and then there were, let's see, I think Alexander, you did several different lectures, reflections on Ernest Bloch and his music, and a piano music lecture recital, and The Concerto Grosso number 1 was done of Bloch's, and I think that was all Bloch's music that was done. And then along that, there were pieces of Tchaikovsky piano trio, uh, Haydn symphony, Strauss, pardon my French, Le Bourgeois Gentilhomme suite, um, uh, Debussy's Danses Sacré et Profane, um, Shostakovich Cello Concerto, Mendelssohn Overture and Incidental Music to Midsummer Night's Dream, and I think that was about it. So it was really uh, quite a nice combination of events. And then along with us, there were, I think, at least two concerts by the Composer Symposium, where each composer had a work done that had been rehearsed a couple of times in the course of the week. And so it was really quite a comprehensive and very nice festival. And at this time, Neville Dove acted as the music director and artistic director of the festival. Then jumping ahead to 2006, which was the last year, things had changed quite a bit because the Newport Symphony was fully operational and really had quite a long season, one of which included kind of an annual 4th of July concert, which in this particular year, there was not any block music done. And I wasn't part of the planning of that, so I don't know what drove the decisions. Henry Mollicone, who was the symposium director, did serve as conductor, and but they did music of Arthur Sullivan, Grieg, and then some Broadway musicals for the July 4th concert, which came in the middle of everything. But beyond that, there were just the two composer symposium concerts, and the and then I think a year or two prior to this, starting in about 2003 or four, uh, a young musicians program was created so that young folks could come in and begin working on compositions and also act as observers of the symposium and come to the concerts. And that was done by John Stewart. So things evolved quite a bit over the years, but it also made the planning much more complicated, and expenses kept rising, and it ultimately resulted in the dissolution of the Bay Music Festival, which had been the parent company or organization that coordinated things from the very beginning. And Newport Symphony formed its own organization, and the festival got subsumed into that and got redefined. And I think that's the best way I can explain it. And it was bound to change because the players, the people involved changed over the years, and the fact that we relied so much on volunteers really affected things, because some people had done things for many years and just simply, felt they had done their time. And so, and I'm sure many of you listening here today can understand that. That's kind of the way things can be in the fine arts world. Just a couple of other things. The master composer for that 2006 was George Santakis, and as I said, Henry did the director of the symposium, as well as the orchestra. I might also mention just the fellows that were at the Composer Symposium that year, because some of these people have gone on to some very distinguished careers in the interim. John Aylward was there, who had his DMA from Brandeis. Chris Arell had a DMA from Cornell. Nick Demos, Cleveland Institute of Music, and Nick is now in works in Georgia. Liana Kirchhoff, MA from University of Minnesota. Paul Lombardi was an Oregon graduate, PhD. Marcus Maroney, Yale School of Music. Elliot Miles McKinley, and at that time was a doctoral candidate at the University of Minnesota, and he now teaches back east. I'm not quite sure. And Jessica Rudman, who at that time was working on her MM at Hart School of Music. And actually, I myself attended that summer too. I had never had the benefit of being a composer as part of the Composer Symposium, and that was a very nice experience. And so I think that's all I needed to say with that. There are some other people I just wanted to recognize by name. Certainly, as part of the festival and the Composer Symposium, that were very supportive and helpful over the years. And that included Neville Dove, Charlotte Denault, who to this day still lives in Newport, Peggy Reardon, who was just kind of, I don't know, Peggy was just a very outgoing, effusive, lovely lady who helped us with meals and finding housing, all kinds of things. And it was just a wonderful presence and terribly supportive. And also want to recognize Alexander, who's with us today, who has been active really to the present day and has made many visits back here to Newport to support the Bloch Legacy project. And also David Ogden Stiers, actor from Hollywood, whom I'm sure you all know, was very supportive of the festival, gave donations, and did things behind the scenes that we only later found out that he had done to help us out. And so he was really a very special presence a number of summers. And then in a continuing way, after Sharon Morgan left, Catherine Rickbone became director of OCCA, and then Frank Geltner after that. And both of them were very supportive of activities relating to Bloch, even after the festival had to shut down. And and there are countless other people that I'm maybe not remembering or that I know helped serving in so many different ways to support, even to this present day. And because we also made some attempts in the early 2000s to see if we could get the state of Oregon to purchase the Bloch House. And we almost had it, but then the 2008 recession came along, and the Recreation and Parks Department of the state of Oregon lost a good part of their budget. And we were so close, but it didn't quite work. So that's still on the maybe on the very long range wish list to have the Bloch House become some type of a permanent memorial to him. Now, I wanted to back up just a little bit because I wanted to share with you just a portion of two works that I did that were very influenced by Bloch. And let me get to those just one second here. Now, are you seeing this okay? The score?
Yes, that's quite visible.
Oh, okay, thank you. This is a woodwind quintet that I did in 1986. But when I had a chance to write a new piece for the University of Wyoming woodwind quintet, and it's called Wind River Country, and really explores different locations geographical locations and events in Wyoming. But one of the movements is a memorial I wrote to Sacagawea, the Indian Native American lady who helped guide the Lewis and Clark expedition. And in that, I make use of a tune that actually appears in Bloch's America. It's a Pueblo tune, which you'll hear at the outset. And then there's also, let's see here, we got, there's a Chippewa Warriors tune here. We're getting ahead of myself here. Sorry, here we go. That I make use of, and then I also have a kind of a quasi-improvisatory section, which is maybe not quite so much related to Bloch as it is perhaps Charles Ives, but I think I make use of a Choctaw pleasure dance, which I located in a different Native American collection. But my point is that the Densmore collection was very important and led me on a whole very long trail of writing pieces related to Native American culture, which I actually pursue to the present day. So I want to play you just a little bit of this. I want to watch I guess are we doing all right on time, Jesse? Okay. Uh, are you getting the music okay?
Did you want to show the score at the same time?
Yes.
Yes, that's good. There's one thing I should have mentioned at the outset. Greg had told me that this was going to be a fairly informal talk and had no objections at all if we wanted to ask questions in the course of the presentation. There's no need to wait until the end for a formal Q&A session. And I just wanted to get in a quick question of my own at this point. A couple of questions, actually. I'd love to know your thoughts on the differences between the way you make use of these Native American musical elements and the way that Ernest Bloch did. But I was also curious, I know that this is a wind quintet, and yet it seems that it doesn't actually sound consistently like a wind quintet for long stretches, at least. A couple of the players in the ensemble put down their wind instruments and play a rattle or some other percussion instrument.
Yes. Um, well, let's see. I really, in my use of Native American materials, unlike composers around the turn of the 20th century who made use of the materials, Bloch being one of them, but many other American composers, I didn't attempt to harmonize it or westernize it. Rather, I tried to keep the music in its what might have been. I have to put it that way. What might have been the way it was originally used in by Native Americans, and uh, and in the performances that have been available to me, I've always been intrigued by sort of a uh, polymetric kind of approach to the music, very much like Charles Ives did in some of his music, of different rhythmic planes going on at the same time and focusing more on the linear aspects of the music rather than trying to come up with harmonic or harmonizations. And and Bloch, in making use of this, really did westernize it more so than what I think I did with this same example. If you want to compare it, you can listen to America, which is where I actually first discovered this, and then trace the source to Francis Densmore. Um, and and I think that's where um, I was partially influenced in the sense of making the choice to use the music in the way Bloch did, uh, and but yet I wanted to approach how I treated it in a different fashion, based
I
on
see.
a different that I'm of a different generation, a whole different background than Bloch, and yet I it was probably more of a spiritual kind of thing, if I can put it that way, of the way he wanted to honor his new country in America, and the very strong feeling he had about that, and and I really admired that, and so I kind of took that as a point of spiritual or inspirational departure. Be the best way I
Thank
can
you.
explain it.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you. I appreciate that. Did you want to share some of this other piece as well, the Newport
Yes,
Fantasy?
yeah, and I think let me do that. And if you maybe if there are questions that you want to,
Yes, perhaps an excerpt this time. I don't know if we'd have time to listen
yeah,
to the
yeah, no, I
entire
want to just
piece,
play
but
the very beginning of this because this is a much longer piece, and I don't want to take the time. Um, um, as I said, I was commissioned by the Newport Symphony to write this piece, and I wanted to explore the differences uh, in where we are culturally today as opposed to what it might have been at the time Newport first started. And so I uh, kind of worked in two parts here. The first section being I titled Myths of Time and the Ancient Ones, Culture Clash. And that's where I do quote some Native American material. and then there's a pause, and then kind of an in memoriam to some things that have been kind of lost or not memorialized, and then looking ahead to the future. But what I want to concentrate on is this first section, and this was done for full orchestra. The performance I have here was the Newport Symphony, and I must say they were very brave, because I experimented with some improvisational sections and some fairly exotic percussion instruments that they were asked to play, and they were very good about it all and very enthusiastic, and worked very diligently to realize a good performance. Also, in the incorporation of the Native American material, there's a bit of Bloch in this. In my point of inspiration there is his Sinfonia Breva that he wrote after the Second World War, and I just like the contents of that. I found it very inspirational, and it's really the closest Bloch probably ever came to writing a 12-tone piece, and that there is perhaps a tone row used in it. I have not analyzed the piece in that depth, so I can't really speak. I'm just speaking to the my oral experience with the work. But nonetheless, that's part of this piece as well. So I think with that, I'll do my best to keep moving along in the score here. This is, I guess I can make it a little smaller here, but it's a little difficult to get it all all together here. But let me go ahead. Pardon me. Let me back up here. Well, I think I'll stop there. Uh, I apologize for the quality. You know, trying to play music things over Zoom and especially if they're MP3 files, it doesn't make for the best oral experience. So I apologize for that. But
Thank you so much for that. If I could ask you to stop sharing your screen
yes,
so we could all have a better look at you and
yes.
each other. Thank you very, very much for that. The floor is open for any comments or questions for Dr. Greg A. Steinke. Josh, and I think you're muted, Josh, so
Yes, thank you. Great. I love hearing all these. The question I had with the Wind River, right? Am I correct? Wind River, correct? That's
Yes.
the one. Yeah. Which actual tribe were you inspired by? Because when I was
Oh,
thinking about
well,
Ernest Bloch,
yeah. That particular example is a Pueblo song, and some other tribes that I've used Chippewa. Um, mainly, I've not been able to find really that many examples here in the Northwest. Uh, Most of the examples that I found that I find interesting, at least to me as a composer, have been primarily Southwestern. And but there certainly are a variety of things that are available, really from across the United States, uh, even in the Densmore book and in other sources that one can call upon.
and the Ojibwa, you're talking about more in Ontario region. Is that what you're looking at?
Say again. I'm
The
sorry.
Ojibwa or the Chippewa?
Chippewa.
Yeah. So was it inspired more of the area up in Ontario, that New York area, the Michigan area?
Uh, well, yes, because that would be Chippewa territory back there. One thing, Jesse, that I wanted to mention, um, I don't know if all you're familiar with the book that Helen Johnston uh, did. Um, I don't know if I can. Yeah,
the
it's
Bloch, Ernest Bloch.
Ernest Bloch. My camera's going to do funny things here, but it's a yeah. I've got a new Mac and it's got a camera that does automatic things, so I can't really. Uh, okay. Anyway, it's a book that she did several years ago now. The Ernest Bloch I Knew, The Agate Beach Years, and it's a wonderful book. If you don't know of it, I'm not sure how readily available it was. It is because it was only printed in a very small number, but and Helen published it herself. But it's a wonderful book, and um, I would have to do a little. I haven't researched it to know if it is if you could find copies of it, but it's another very nice Ernst Bloch resource.
Great, thank you for that. Sort of sad to turn
Mhm.
into a different direction in 2006, 7. What are the prospects with all of this Ernest Bloch energy in Oregon? What might there be to hope for in terms of a revitalized Ernest Bloch Festival out there?
Well, um, Frank Geltner has worked tirelessly for many years trying to keep things going. And there are some very general plans because I'm trying to remember, Alex, maybe you can help me out here. For blocks, uh, there's a big, is it 2030? I'm trying to remember that there's another anniversary coming up. And some plans are trying to get off the ground. I'm not sure quite where that's at the moment. And Frank is no longer living here in Newport, and so he's working at a distance helping with this. The one big thing that he has done is that the crucifix that used to hang in the block house, which found its way to Juilliard some years ago, has now is going to be retrieved back here to Newport, and I'm not quite sure where that's at, but that's been a major thing. But other than that, I think we're people are just working as best they can to try to keep something alive here in Newport. But it's been a struggle the whole time that I've been involved, and it's been on and off. And groups have kind of come and gone a little bit, trying to help. And I must say, I'm not the spring chicken that I used to be, and I still keep fairly busy with my work as a composer. So I'm not able to devote. Maybe I simply can't devote the time. I do what I can to help, but I think, and the unfortunate thing is that we've had some changes too. That the Lincoln County Historical Society, which was kind of becoming an anchor in some activity, there's been changes in their administration, so. New people come in and they have to be kind of re-educated to some of this history that's sitting right here in our backyard.
I see.
So
Thank you for that. Yes, Alex, please.
Hi, well, Greg, thanks ever so much for that very evocative presentation. I mean, both in the two parts, your music, first of all, and then secondly, about the Ernest Bloch Music Festival. First of all, about the music, which I really enjoyed very much listening to. And it's very interesting how folk traditions can be used in so many different ways by Western classical composers, and how you used it in your way and Bloch used it in his way, quite different, nevertheless the same material. And there would be countless other ways. But that is the wonderful thing, I think, about using traditional material in one's compositions, because it's not as though one is supplanting the original. The original is perfect as it is. It doesn't need improving or anything like that. But what it does enable is for composers to show their perspective, their response to the music, and how they feel it, and what they hear when they hear the music. And I really do feel that all these different ways of using traditional material, I've written a little bit about this because it is a controversial issue. Yes. And I think it needs discussion, obviously, but I think you've done a wonderful job of those. And I really enjoyed very much to hear how you did it. And that was really amazing. And as far as the Ernest Bloch Music Festival is concerned, well, you very kindly mentioned that I had been, or certainly at that occasion that you mentioned, but I'd been a few years to, festivals that happened in consequent years. And there was something very, very special about the Ernest Bloch Music Festival. It may be partly the location in Newport, which is such a beautiful place, and I love Newport, I must say. Go whenever I can. But also, generally the Oregon coast is just fabulous, as we know. I don't need to. Sorry, I hope I don't sound patronizing. I mean, I'm just saying that it is wonderful. But also the people that I had the honor to meet there were so encouraging and so actually enthusiastic about Bloch's music, and that I also would say the same as Jesse. It's really a great shame that the festival gradually evaporated, and it would be so wonderful if it could be reenacted, because the Performing Arts Centre, the PAC, in Newport is a lovely space, and I really feel not only for concerts but also for giving talks and also for lots of other activities there. And I'm sure that it would be a wonderful venue to have exhibitions as well. I see Eric Johnson sitting here as well, because I remember there were all sorts of activities took place there. And I feel that there is a place for the Ernest Bloch Music Festival, which is unique. It's something, that can be done in that milieu where Bloch just lived just up the road, basically, from Newport in Agate Beach, as we know. So I would like to ask if there's some ways in which the Newport authorities could be encouraged to develop this again, because as you said, it was not only the Bloch Festival itself, it was the Composers Symposium, which was brilliant. I met some fantastic composers who came to that, and also joined in with the festival as well.
Yeah.
And the young people's what I can't remember exactly what that was called, but the Young Musicians organization, which was organized by John Stewart from Harvard University, I think he was there at the time, was also an incredible sort of initiative, because this meant these were school kids, you know, teenagers who came along and spent a week totally immersed in composition. Fantastic. I mean, there was a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for them. And I think some really excellent compositions resulted. Not only were they composed there, but also there were facilities for performing the compositions that had been composed during that week. And I think that is so important, really total immersion. So my feeling is that if it could be revived, it would be, a fabulous addition to the Bloch calendar. And I'm just wondering, 2030 is quite a long way off. I know it's sort of 8 years away, but maybe gradually things could be helped along. I would like to ask your advice about that.
Okay. Well, as you're talking, an idea occurred to me. I don't know quite what I can do about this, but there's a young composers program up in Portland that's been very active, and it. I'm trying to remember if it's associated with the Fear No Music ensemble. There's several new music groups up in Portland, but be that as it may, there might be a way of encouraging them to have some sessions down here at the coast with that as a way of maybe getting something started, because there is quite a bit of support here in the state of Oregon for that kind of work with young folks. And maybe they can. I'll make some inquiries about that. You've stirred the brain a little bit here. So no, there really are some lovely performance venues. There's also another performance venue that's been created right on the bayfront with the Marine Heritage Center, and they have a nice little auditorium, and that's getting used a little bit more. I was very disappointed this summer. The Silet's Music Festival had planned a program, and I know a lot of us turned up at a concert expecting to hear a piano work of Bloch's being played, and for whatever reason, it got changed, and there were quite a few of us in the audience that were kind of disappointed because we thought we would have some Bloch music right there played on the bayfront. But in any event, I'll be in touch with Frank too, because I haven't talked with him in a while, and see kind of what the latest is from his standpoint.
Although Frank is living in Florida now, he has strong links with Oregon in general and Portland, and Newport in particular, family links as well. And I think that he has contact with the OCCA and one or two other organizations, and also, where they've got the crucifix at the moment. I think in the Lincoln County Museum, there is a sort of exhibit where I think they're holding the crucifix. And I think that Frank is very much in contact with people who would be able to help in this possible revival of things. I know he's been trying for endless ages to get the Bloch House, and that would be fantastic, but I think it's difficult. It's difficult to arrange because of the circumstances at the moment.
It's always, if I can say so, I've been in the Bloch House many times, and from the very first time that I was there, and even a couple of concerts that we've had there, there's something kind of magical to be in a space like to be in that living room and have music, and particularly a piece of Bloch, knowing that the piece was composed maybe just a few feet away, and it I don't know, it's something you can't really put into words. It's just a very special feeling. Uh, if I can just share something, this would have been back in the early 90s, either the first or second year that we had things going. And I was living, actually, my permanent base was down in Arizona, but I was flying in, and my my plane was on time, but I had trouble with the rental car, and I had to drive down to the coast. But I anyway arrived at the concert that I was supposed to be at, and I walked in, and Lucienne, I think Suzanne was there, Ernie the second, probably other Bloch family members were there, and in the midst of a performance, I don't remember the piece. It was a Bloch piece, um, and I walked in on that, and it was like walking into another world almost. Uh, and because everyone was there sitting transfixed and looking out the windows, which looks out on the coast and the trees outside. And I don't know, it was just a very, one of those once in a lifetime things.